All right, gang. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to our broadcast
Aloha.
tonight. I'm here with
Aloha.
three of my brothers, Dane DuPont, Ryan Finlay, Ikaika Marzo. It's been 2 years since the beginning of Eruption 2018 in Leilani Estates. And we're going to just have a little talk story tonight and kind of, I guess, relive a little bit and use that to kind of process, everything that's happened during Eruption, everything that's happened since, and kind of, just use that as a medium. Yeah. What do you guys think? What are your initial thoughts
hmm
on having 2 years go by since the eruption began?
Well, I'll go
Who wants to
first.
take
It's
it?
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. It looks like we are live and running. So if anybody has anything that is any issues, let me know now. But yeah, it doesn't seem like 2 years, right? It just doesn't seem like 2 years, but it seems like less than 2 years, and then a decade ago at the same time. It's really a weird dynamic that's going on for me with thinking about this anniversary. How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, it's been a long, yeah, feels like a long time ago. Um, but yeah, no, it's good to be here with you guys today. Fun to catch up and yeah, reminisce about pretty amazing time.
Thank you for joining us, Ikaika. I know you absolutely huge player in this whole thing. I mean, you were the first one that I heard from in this. The eruption was happening, right, and that was on. So
Yeah.
what does this? What does this day mean to you?
It brings back a lot of memories. A lot of good memories and a lot of bad memories. It feels like, it's such a long time ago. It's 2 years ago, and it feels like it was happened yesterday in my mind. And today, not only today, just this whole past week, I've been, rewinding and playing my my memories of every day leading up to this day, uh, from Pu'uo, uh, it's Perch Lake rising for a couple of months while we were doing lava tours in Kalapana and noticing something was happening during that time. And then Pu'uo, its crater lake just disappeared. And next thing you know, following earthquakes, and then on this day. So kind of remember it pretty clear of the events leading up to this day. So
Yeah,
it's something that, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a part of my life, my whole life. And I'm going to remember this day every day, of my life, because every day I think about what should have happened, what should have we done, what could we have done to save people from losing a lot of their belongings or animals, or better preparing people. But you know so that's my that's what I like to open up with.
yeah, and I'm just showing some footage from May 3rd in the Pu'uo lava lake
hmm
when it was rising and stuff like that, and it's
hmm
heavy footage to go back through. Where were you guys when you first heard? I know where Ikaika was when the eruption came up because he was telling me where it was. Where were you, Phil, when May 3rd, when the news broke that we have an eruption?
I was up here in Volcano. Um, I was actually up at the lava lake the day before. It was my kid's birthday, and my dad was in town from out of town, and we were kind of doing some touristy things and looking around the park. And it's interesting. My kids were bored. They're like, "Oh, we're gonna go see the lava lake again. Oh, okay, here we go." And I was like, "Well, you guys should enjoy it. It's not gonna be here forever." And but we were talking before, like, well, it's the lava lake that was present in Hale Mau Mau was there for most of the time. It was there for 100 years. Until 1924. So we were saying, oh, it could have been 100 years of lava lake that we're going to live through, and it turned out to be 10, which is plenty. It's a lot, but we didn't think it was going to go that quick. That's for sure. And so when I saw that, I was on alert as well. Pool collapse had already happened several days before that, and if I hadn't been they're pinning my dad, then I probably would have been down in Phoenix sooner, right? But took watching Ikaika's video and then watching him announce that he was going to open the hub down Hoa, and that people should gather there to help. And that's kind of, when I fully jumped on board and went down to the hub, I asked Ikaika, he's like, we could use you like an hour ago. I said, okay, I'll be there as soon as I can. And then that's where I was mostly involved with the hub at the beginning, yeah. So maybe Ikaika can tell us more about setting up the hub a little bit. That's kind of an aspect that's really important to our community.
Mm-hmm. So the hub, I was inside there during the eruption. So prior to the hub, I was in contact with Phil a lot of what was happening during the 2018 eruptions, as far as Kalapana, and then crater, the crater lava lake draining, intrusion. And I kept on calling Phil, like, hey, what's going on? Hey, first thing he tells me, follow the earthquakes. You remember that, Phil? And this was like right the day of the intrusion. And Phil is the man that I trust, and anything lava or volcano related, that's the guy that I would go to. Because he's easy to talk to, he's my friend, and he's straight to the point and real easy to get information that can relatable to other people we can relate to. So I talked to Phil during that time, and he said, well, Ikaika, just follow the earthquakes. So during that time, we were following the earthquakes. Then we had an eruption. So we were in there for Thursday evening, stayed in there, watched Fisher 2, watched Fisher 3, which was a couple telephone poles down from where I was staying. Watched Fisher 4, Fisher 5. And Fisher 4 was on the corner of Kahukai and Leilani Boulevard near the Pohiki Road. Then it started to get really, really bad as far as SO2 levels in Leilani. And I remember that time it was variable winds, not that much of wind. So the SO2 levels was staying right in that area, the lower part of Leilani. So we had to vacate because we had a hard time breathing in the lower part of Leilani. So I got out, and while we were getting out, there was that big earthquake.
Can I jump in right here?
Yeah, go right ahead.
The video that we're now looking at, this is where I grew up. Like, I grew up right on this part of the street. Like, that was where we used to set off fireworks every 4th of July, and, New Year's was right at this place. I know whose driveways those are. My parents' house is to the left. And that was the morning where you gave me the bad news, right? That, oh yeah, it's right at your place, right? It's right there. So this was like, threw us right into it too, because this was the first homes lost, was on the, May 4th. Right, we had the one on I can't remember her name. It was the teacher from Pahoa. I'm sorry, I forgot her name currently. And then right here, and then it just continued onwards. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but back to you.
No problem. We're gonna have a lot of during this talk story. You're gonna have a lot of people looking at these videos and saying, "Hey, that's where I grew up too." So take the time to stop it. Yeah. But anyways, we got out. And once I got out, we didn't sleep. I didn't sleep from before the eruption, from Wednesday night and Tuesday night. I didn't sleep. It was constant going. So we got out, and I did an interview with KITV at the Pahoa. I think it was the Pahoa Rec Center at the Red Cross. I did an interview there. While doing the interview, before the interview, I said, you know what? I talked to one of my brother, partner in crime, Andrew Dunn. Call these guys. Meet me at this corner at Highway 130 and Highway 132. And I had a handful of guys. And we, right there in that afternoon, we gathered together and I said, this is what we need to do today. And whatever we can, whatever resources we can get on right at that time, let's get us connected with these resources. Let's bring it to this property and let's set up an informational hub and a place where some people can come during this time, because everybody was evacuated pretty much. Not everybody. There were some rebels in there, but the police was going during that eruption night. Police was going door to door and evacuating everyone in Leilani. First thing I said, you know what? The person that we need for information is Phil. Phil, where are you? I'm home. I need you yesterday. Can you get here? Yes, I'm jumping in my car. I'm coming right down. So he came right down. He pulled up. We had like a 20 by 20 tent, couple tables, people there, don't know what to do. We had all the lights and everything. Phil, can you kind of speak to these people right now and tell them what's going on, what's happening, what's the prediction of what's going to happen in the next day, 2 days, 3 days? Can we, people were just didn't know what to do, and they was looking for answers. They had so many questions, but nobody could answer those questions. They went to our leaders, they went to our civil defense, our county government, and there was no answers. So we just had to come up with answers for these people so they could feel like somebody actually cared. Because during that time, nobody cared for these people, man. And
yeah, it was hard.
I still remember, it's hard, man, because nobody actually cared for the people that was losing their homes, just losing everything that they grew up with. Even if people were just moved here 10 years ago, they was losing a part of their life, and our government didn't care. Zero gratitude. And they came to the hub for love, aloha, and information. And I think the hub played a huge role in these people moving forward. So that's how it started. Just gathering resources, gathering people that we trust to come in to help us help people. It's plain and simple.
And Ryan, where were you at the? Oh, sorry. Right.
No problem. Go ahead.
Ryan, where were you? Like, you were like ahead of this thing too, right? You were posting maps on Tracker in the beginning. Like, you were one of the few people that, there was only a few that seemed like they were doing things ahead of the curve.
Yeah. So I mean, I was really paying attention when the lava lake dropped, and that was obviously a huge thing. And then just like Ikaika just said, follow the earthquakes, and I think the lava lake dropped, and then all of a sudden we started seeing these huge earthquake swarms moving straight towards Leilani. And can you back it up that one more? Switch back to the yeah. So this was huge. This is all the information we had. I mean, as far as on the ground, Ikaika, and I think was it Andrew that was with you that was helping you map those cracks?
We had Leilani Estates, one of their workers, two of their workers, their ground crew, and we all gathered. And I said, "Hey, cracks are coming. Get on every road and go find a map of. I know you guys have a map. Go to every road and mark every crack you find." And they went. In the next 30 minutes, they came right back and they said, "Hey, this is what we found." Like, wow. And then we just seen that line coming from, the southwest part of Leilani coming across to the east. And we're like, oh boy. And then every 3 hours, they would go look, hey, there's like 3 more cracks. And it would come like 10 more cracks. So by that time, I think this one had like 17, or I forgot. I really forgot the count. But by the end of the day, it was like 30 something cracks, or 33 cracks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was, I think this map, I think the first version of this map, I think you put it up on May 1st. And then May 2nd, just like Ikaika said, I was starting to feel really burdened because all these cracks are showing up right in the line. They're getting bigger. They're getting more frequent. And then add to that all these crazy earthquakes going on. And there was no warning for anyone to evacuate. There wasn't anything that, any warnings going out to the people that to tell them the lava was probably imminent at this point. And, and the USGS, I think, came out on May 2nd and said something like, yeah, these cracks are being formed because lava is intruding underneath Leilani Estates, and it's pushing up, and it's causing the ground to break. And when you start, like, no one had been told to evacuate, and you start thinking about this, like, everyone's possessions are in their houses and their animals are still there, and you're just like, what happens if it erupts, and then the next day? And so it was super sobering. That's why I think on May 2nd, if you have that next slide, that's where, and coupled with, someone had asked, like, is there any precedent? Like, what's the precedent for an eruption down in this area? And it was 1955, that the fissure line. And so I circled it, and I was like, you know what? With the cracks where they're at, with all the earthquakes where they're at, this is the most likely place the lava is going to come out. And, it was kind of a little bold to do that. But I honestly, I would rather, with all the information we had, put out a warning, for some people to, to listen to, rather than say nothing, So, yeah, and then sure enough, it was the next, I forget what time it was on May 3rd, but yeah, it was the next day. The next image I saw was lava fountaining out of the ground.
Yeah, I remember that whole day too, how it's played out. I remember it clearly. I remember doing the cracks, investigating cracks, posting it on Facebook, and then had that earthquake. Then we had that pink plume, that red plume from Pu'u'o. And Mileka was up on Apa'a Road, on the Pahoa Rubbish Dump Road, and it was a huge commotion up there. So we were in cracks. All of a sudden, let's run to Apa'a Road and view what's happening. We flew a drone up there. It was a huge plume coming out of Pu'u'o. But and this is the funny part. So, and the people were in my truck. We had 5 guys in my truck, and we were all doing the investigation. Coming out of Leilani, taking a turn at Leilani. Right at that moment, we smelled SO2. And I'm not going to lie to you, we smelled SO2. We all looked at each other and said, do you smell that? Do you smell like lava or like sulfur? And we looked at each other, like, yeah, that's weird. So we're all looking around, that must have been the plume up there, or the earthquake has done something. So we went to Apa'a Road, met with Mileka there, and then I got a phone call. So I got the phone call from Bruce and Mick. Say, hey, Ikaika, where are you at? I was like, I'm at Apa'a Road, earthquake, huge plume. We're going up right now. We're loading on a bird. You want to go? I said, yeah, I want to go. So I flew it to Hilo, went on the helicopter trip, went up to Pu'u'o, and when I went to Pu'u'o, it was like completely empty. Nothing in Pu'u'o. Circling flying, no lava at all. Went west of Pu'o. We seen, well, if you remember, there were a little fissure before Leilani, west between Napao and Pu'o. So that happened like for like 10 minutes or something like that. Then the lava went right back in. So we were thinking lava was going back towards Napao, like the Kamomoa fissure. So we flew back and, well, rewind back. When we were flying around there, we seen how fresh the lava was. So it spot out and it flowed maybe 10, 20 yards out of this crack that it created, and then it stopped. So when we were flying, then we flew back to Leilani. And when we were over Leilani, I just had a feeling. I just had a bad feeling. And I went on a mic and said, Mick, Bruce, my feeling is there's going to be an eruption in Leilani today. And Mick goes, don't tell me that, Ikaika. Don't tell me. I said, that's just my gut feeling. We land in Hilo. I jump on my truck. I drove back. I called some of my close friends, and who was at the time, he was the, if I'm not mistaken, he was part of the Leilani board, which is Mark Hawanio and his family. And they called me, and I was just passing KL. They told me, what? So you was up on a helicopter. What do you think? I said, and you can ask them to this day. I told them, what are you guys doing right now? We're at home. We're wondering what's happening. There's going to be an eruption in Leilani. That's my gut feeling. Get everything together. Get them all into your truck. Start packing. Start evacuating. They're like, no, I don't believe you. I said, I just have a gut feeling. With this much earthquakes, this much cracks happening within a short period of time, you don't gotta be one rocket scientist to know something's happening. It's happening right in front. The first sequence of an eruption is happening right in front of us. It's an earthquake and cracks. What's the next thing? Eruption. Landed back, went into Leilani, view all the cracks from the morning till when we got back into Leilani. We was putting in sticks at these cracks. And these sticks was like at least an inch overhang from these cracks. So they will go over the crack like this, and like an inch would be overhanging on top of the road. When we got back, all those sticks were in the crack. We were like, oh my God, something's about to happen. So we jumped in a Polaris, we went around, we was on Kaupili, we went around to Mohala, drove down Mohala. Bang up. 3-something eruption. First we hear the pop. Second, we smell the sulfur. That's the same sulfur we smelled earlier in that day. Popped, sulfur, massive amount of sulfur. Jet engine sounding off, then lava. And when it started to sulfur, that's when I did the live. And when I did the live, this is from USGS and Hawaii Police Department. So USGS said, they talked to me personally, hey, thank you so much. I was like, why? Because your live made it positive that there was an eruption. So when people were watching my live, people were saying, their headquarters was saying, hey, talking to the guys in the field, hey, do you guys see an eruption? And they were on the top of they were on the top of PGV. Do you guys see an eruption? Do you have a visual? They were like, no, we don't see an eruption. Ikaika Marzo is saying there's an eruption in Leilani. Do you guys see a visual? No. So they were like, can you tell on his live, is there lava? Can you positive identify there's lava? No, we can't. Can you get over there? Then sure enough, that, and then police department and fire department, before dispatch could even tell them there was an eruption, all the police was on my live and telling everybody, hey, everybody, all units, Hilo, Kau, get down to Pohoa. There's an eruption. But they were saying, no, there's not on dispatch. No, it's on Ikaika Marzo's feed. Get down there. That's how all agencies went straight to Mohala because of that. But, you know, that I remember everything from play to play. But that's how I remember that first day. Yeah.
I just on the map, I circled a few things I can show you on Mahalo Street, your path that you took to get there, right? To on Kahukai, and that's been highlighted. Then where the eruption took place is circled, right, and getting scribbled in. And then you have the observation point that from PGV, the rough angle that they would be observing from, as you discussed. And the one thing that's right here that's being circled now is the Kahukai Hill, right? You have a massive hill between there. There's no line of sight. There's no line of sight through that area. So it's like, yeah, I can see that's they found a blind spot basically, like from that host. But yeah, I just want to point that out. You know, as you were discussing it, I was looking at the map and I'm like, hey, they're looking at a hill when they do that.
Right.
You know.
Actually, I was on Leilani Ave.
Oh, Leilani Ave at that time.
Going down, yeah. I was going down.
Like that?
Yeah.
Like that?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I thought you were on this side and not this corner here the whole time.
Yeah, I was on Leilani Ave going down. And then after that, we was just running to homes in the vicinity. People were like cooking dinner and relaxing, and here comes me running in and ruining the day.
Yeah.
But
my mom was there that day. She was like, outside. I was on the mainland when the first thing started off. I was like applying at software companies there and stuff like that and interviews. And then I find out like, oh, by the way, there's lava on the ground in Leilani. Like, wait, what just happened? And she calls me and she's like, oh yeah, so I'm here and I'm looking at it and it's not that bad. It was like, okay, no, like, like this is, on day one, that fissure, as we showed in the video, we can re-cue it, but it was not, it was just a prelude. And you were saying that too at the time. That was the thing I always remembered. At the time, I was somewhat, because I was just jumping on, right? I was late to the party because I was, gone. And I remember joining and you were like, this is the first mini fissures to come, right? This is just the onset. This is what you can expect. And I was like, oh man, and then it was like, he's right though, right? And it was like immediately the next morning, boom, under our place, right? And it was just like jumping in late on it that was huge, right? And then it was like, oh, okay, so, let's redo what I am currently working on altogether and start, applying back to, the situation at hand. Because that was, because I did most of the stuff in the beginning for Hawaii Tracker and stuff like that from remote. Just wasn't here, when it popped off. So it was really interesting to see it, your coverage and Ryan's coverage, especially in the initial phase.
And let me tell you something. If it wasn't for Hawaii Tracker and the hub, I just don't feel confident. Like, if it wasn't for Hawaii Tracker and the hub, I would have. I think there would be a lot more devastation.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for them. And that is, and I'd like to thank Ryan and you guys right there, man. Wasn't for you guys, the hub, and just key factors in the whole eruption, man.
And we needed each other. Like, that was the thing. Yeah. Like, we couldn't do it without the hub. Like, there was no way to do what we did without the hub. Zero way, shape, or form without that coming about, right? That enabled us to do what we did in a lot of ways, right? That information on the ground. Like,
the digital and the physical.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hub was huge, and yeah, I mean it was I mean, we were blessed to be able to help, and I was remote too at the time, and I've talked when I came out. I don't know, it was a month or two later. I remember coming out and running around, and I just like, if I would have been on site, there's no way I would have been able to do what I did, because just seeing what it was like for Ikaika to, I mean, he's running around all day long and into the evening and the night, like, so it worked out. It was a blend of being able to help cover things on the computer and in the group, but it was also working closely with people on the ground, like Ikaika and Phil and Chris and Heath and Mick and Bruce, and I'm missing other people.
Right. There's so many people to name.
A lot of,
like, that's the thing.
Yeah, a lot of people played huge parts in this eruption for the betterment of our people of Puna. And Hawaii Tracker. We had even Shane Turpin and his group, Lava News.
Yep.
They played a huge part too in certain areas of the. Yeah, Travis Sanders, Damon Barrios, all those guys played a huge thing in the eruption, because they were in places where it was hard to get to.
Yeah.
To get the proper information about what's happening in that area, and they were in that area. So, I think a lot of our community had covered, a lot of the information, and also individuals what was happening to them at the specific time at their home or something like that, putting it out on social media, and that was huge information too.
I remember Heath and Chris.
Man.
A couple times a day they were walking in a circle or inside Leilani, ticking off the edge of the flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many people to name. That's the thing about this, is that it was, that's the always thing I come back to about Hawaii, is it's a disaster-prone population where people just know that don't expect the government to bail you out. You will have to fill in gaps yourselves. And there were so many people that rose to the occasion. That was what's so impressive about the whole thing. It wasn't about who was doing what, or it was just this huge consolidated effort, right, by the local community that knew what they were dealing with and knew who they were dealing with. Right? And that's what made it special about the whole thing to me, was it wasn't, some government agency stepped in and all, ills are cured. No, it was the community solves issues themselves in a lot of regards.
Right. We had to step up too. We had to, the community had to step up, because there was nobody else wanting to step up for them.
Yep.
Just plain and simple. Government, don't even count on the government during that time. Sorry to say, but
Yeah, Ikaika, your one of your earliest videos, you were saying that civil defense or Hawaii Volcanoes or HVO would surely give an alert with enough time to make their decisions and factor things up. And the next video, it was actually you knocking people's doors, getting them out, and there's no one else around. And that's a real solid example right there, where people's lives may have been really severely impacted. Yeah.
Right. And I think there's too much red tape in the government to talk to a few people from HVO, and they just get restricted by giving out some information or by jumping the gun or something like that. But in this kind of times, I think it's better to jump the gun than not.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
It's better to overreact a little bit, than underreact, because in the days, I would say within a week within a couple days, even people weren't even able to get back into their homes. Some of their pets, were still trapped at houses, and I mean, there were some.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a sobering time, and you still that's when it really sunk in. Like, it would have been good to get more warning out to people. That didn't get talked about. It was tough. Some of the stories we heard, and some of the images, and some of the videos that we saw.
Yeah.
I mean, like, one of the things, and just going back to, the planning and stuff like that and overreacting, one of the things I learned early was when you do contingency planning, right, you plan for the worst always, and then the best will happen, right? You make the plans for the worst case scenario, and then from there, you can, move forward. And then when things are less than you expected, then that's that's much better than you getting blown out of the water and saying, "Oh, I had no idea this was going to happen," right? And that was the one thing about the eruption that kept doing to me, like, was these escalations. Like, oh, I think I know what it's doing, then boom, it's higher, right? Boom, it's more, it's worse, right? It's escalated again, but you still within the realm of possibilities, right? We moved from basically using the 1955 eruption as a model, right, until when Fissure 8 started going, and then we started looking at Mauna Loa voluminous flows to model what was happening. And then from there, it was like, okay, so Fissure 8 is basically its own thing, and we don't have anything to relate what's happening to, right? Because it's so voluminous. That lava river that it formed was so impressive that I remember. I think you would remember this. One of the first times we interacted really was in the eruption when we on Hawaii Tracker, we did calculations using Mauna Loa models to figure out the depth of the lava channel, and based upon Mauna Loa flows and how wide the channel was and how fast we figured that it was moving through there, that it had to be only like 3 to 4 feet deep, right? And you're like, no way, it's so much deeper than that, right?
Yeah.
And
I remember that one too.
And then we're like, oh, so this is something that we ain't never seen before, right? We have nothing to compare this thing to now, because we tried.
Nothing.
Like, we're in new territory, right?
Right.
And that was one of the real eye-openers for me, was like, okay, so even when we take the math models and try and apply them to this, then try and extrapolate out, it's not working right now. We're lowballing this hard, It was.
Yeah, the numbers just didn't make sense.
Right. It just didn't make sense at all. You want to speak on that?
What
a
were
little
your
bit,
guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it got really obvious. It was really when we started seeing Ikaika's videos of those lava boats, right? Those big rafts of the channel edges that were floating down, and then we'd see them disappear under the surface, and then it'd reemerge. And you see, like, wow, that thing, dipped under and came up at least 5, 6 feet, sometimes 8, 10 feet. And you think, well, there's no way that channel is only 3 feet deep.
Yeah.
There's no way for it to. I think that thing was to float and to express like that, right? I mean, the channel, we got a video of the channel playing now. I mean, it was so varied, right? There were the rapid areas. There was a big, flat, wide area. The braids, like, not all the braids lasted, right? I mean, at the beginning, we had the full figure 8, and that one section died off later on. I mean, it really changed the dynamic most of the time. And we were, I guess, scrambling that first month, really, right? Like, as things really kind of were changing a lot. And then finally, once Fissure 8 opened up and it kind of stabilized, and we were able to kind of take time to ask questions like that, right? Like, oh, how much lava actually is coming out, rather than like, oh, crap, where's it going now, right? And it's kind of
right
set in its path at the very least.
Right, and those were like initial calculations, like once things stabilized. And that was really the thing that I found in the Holmes Loss map and the development of that, because I was working with Heath Dalton and Chris Brewmeister on that one, and a bunch of other people that were reporting situations on the ground. And it was just really interesting how things would end up developing, over time. I kind of changing topic a little bit, but just how we could crowdsource the information from the ground, right, with combining it from the air and aerial overlays from USGS of where the lava is, be able to determine like, hey, which are the houses that we're unsure of, right, where that we have question marks if they still exist or not, and can you just go to those houses and see if they're still standing, right? And then he just, I get message back telling me like, yeah, so check mark, these 4 houses are gone, these 2 remain, right? And that was really one of the keys to get, accurate in that whole map that was then used by the Emergency Management Agency, the DOD, and pitched to FEMA, which was then signed by President Trump, right? So it was like seeing crowdsourced information being used by the government like that was huge to me.
And that was also Bruce and Mick. They were going up every day in the helicopter, and we were getting photos and videos, and we'd pause the video and pull frames out. Yeah, that was huge. And then their boot cam. You guys remember that?
Yeah. The boot camp was
the
amazing.
Live boot camp.
And like Scott Wilson was, an all-star in this thing because he was flying over and giving us recon multiple times a day. And he was just, that was the thing about it. He was a pilot, right? He was a pilot that had a cell phone that would point it out the window and click it, right? And then send us the imagery, and he would fly over it multiple times a day. Like, okay, that's huge.
Yep.
Like, that's huge in making our determinations and stuff like that going forward.
Yeah. I had a lot of opportunities to go with Dave Okita. And going up there and also connecting with him too. Hey, I need pictures of this place. And the good thing about it, like, during the second day of the hub, we gathered because nobody could go into Leilani. Everybody was stuck, so everybody came to the hub early in the morning, and we sat there, had a meeting, and we were strategizing on how to get people back into Leilani. And what we had to do is come up with a plan for the county. So I came up with a plan, and we called some county officials, and they said, you know what, we'll help you guys get. That's a good plan. I can give it to the mayor, and if he approves it, we're bringing guys in. Okay. But in that time, we had Pamela Ani. She was collecting all the data for all of the people that lived in Leilani, all the data from all the manifests from the Leilani Association, and collecting and installing that on a map. So we had all the homes on every road, how much homes, where's the eruption. So we had them all, and that played a key fact to, okay, Fisher 8 is coming out on this street in this area. Okay, I need one visual from the sky. Call up Dave. Send me one video and one picture of so-and-so, or Kupona Street on the Malama side. Or send me a couple pictures of Luana and on the Malama side of Leilani Boulevard. So he will go up and take pictures, and then we'll bring it back and analyze that pictures with the maps that we had and say, oh, you know what, this so-and-so 15- or 16- blah, 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 Luana Street, that address is gone, and we'll know who owned that home. So we had a pretty sophisticated database at the hub already. And we were using it daily, and then all of a sudden, Phil came in, and we were doing all these maps every day, and those maps had played a huge role too in this eruption, because people couldn't go in and see a lot of 90% of the time nobody could go in and view their house, and to notify them, hey, your house is gone, with the evidence, at least they would know right on that time that, hey, my house is gone, or it's still standing, and all this information. Even Scott did some really cool footage. Evening, he went up there like, I don't know, like 5 times a day, man, and he was taking pictures. The county helicopter, I know some of the pilots, and they're sending me videos and pictures. I'll tell, hey, you going up today? Yeah, take a picture of this. Okay, boom. So
Right.
we had a lot of good resources back then.
The best one I had was Andrew Hara, because he was flying with the National Guard and some other guys at the time, right?
Yeah.
And he would send me a message like, "Yo, I'm going up. What do you need?" And I'd send him longitude points, right? Go here, here, and here, and just photograph whatever looks important to you, right? And he would then we gave him Hawaii Tracker was donated by, what was the organization, Ryan? The hotspots, the digital hotspots we were given.
It was like a community emergency response. It's like a tech community response team.
Right.
I forgot the name of it.
But they donated us several information, or these mobile hubs that would create hotspots, right, on the fly. So Andrew had one of them, and he would begin uploading the photos that he had taken while on the chopper to us. So then we could tell him like where else we wanted to see, or if he had captured it and stuff like that, and we would get him in, like, as the chopper is still flying. So we're, if something came across the wire where it was like, hey, look out for this. It's like, hey, are you still in the air? Are you still in the proximity? Check this out. And then they would just fly there, and check it out and be like, and then it was like, okay, so now we know more, right? And just having somebody in the air like that with direct communications was so huge. Being able to, like, I want you to see this. I want you to look at this. Can you check this for me? Right? And as you're saying with Dave Akita, it was just like the same type of situation. Having eyes in the air, looking down for you was just, it was so important.
Yeah, it was really, really crucial. And I have another example too, and that was just the actual maps that were drawing at the hub, right? I mean, people would go into Leilani and they would tell us, "Oh, I couldn't get through this street. The cracks are too big, or it was, the gas is too bad over here." And so we'd know which paths in and out were still passable. And so people going in the next 15 minutes could actually get that report of people who had just come out, and the information like kept getting transmitted in the chain that way, right? So we were able to draw that map in real time based on people's reports that were evacuating on the way out of Leilani as well, and use that to inform people going into Leilani, like what the most efficient and safest ways were.
So
how long after? Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, how long after the eruption started did we start getting the explosions up at the summit? Because that was another thing that was also going on at the same time. And I remember that's when we started working with Ken Boyer really closely, another awesome team member. And it was just crazy because it was like two disasters at the same time with the constant explosions. And
yeah, it was like in that second week of May, right? That things started really, the lava lake had dropped down, and then the walls started falling in, and the ash clouds started getting bigger and bigger. And then I think it took until maybe the 17th or 18th for it to actually put up that really tall emission explosion that went up into the stratosphere, right?
Oh yeah.
Right. And the thing about that time, like during those collapses, those initial explosions, is we didn't really understand what was happening, right? Even from USGS side, like there was a thought on what was happening, and the timing and the predictions were actually pretty legit. But the understanding was kind of, what was driving the mechanism that was happening wasn't fully grasped at the time. But we then transitioned from these explosions, right, where it was shooting ash clouds 30,000 feet in the air, 10,000 feet in the air, into the point where we'd have collapses that would, there was no explosion anymore, right? It would just drop, 10 meters all at once.
Right.
The caldera just dropped.
Constant earthquakes.
Right. And the timing of that was, hugely critical when, one of the things we don't really throw out there that often publicly is, but, Ryan and I on July 5th, we put out a joint post together where we said that it was basically the eruption was going into the final stages. And then we got a official advisory a little later from a preliminary analysis done by USGS that suggested otherwise, that it would most likely last for months to years. On July 14th, that was published. And it was it was a really interesting time period to go into, but it was based upon real data, right? We were looking at and formulating upon the intervals of the collapse explosions, the timing between them at the summit, and then looking down and extrapolating based upon the intervals increasing, how that would then lead to the eruption stopping, right? And this was also based upon this whole thing that Phil had been discussing for a while, which was pulses versus surges, right? Which was first identified by USGS, but once they identified it, it was game on. Right. Okay, we're talking pulses and surges, even though they haven't been identified as such at that time. Right. We can start now making different analysis, and upon that analysis, it was it's pretty clear we're entering a different phase. And then when we did enter that phase, it was highly volatile in the channel. We start to see it divert around Green Mountain. We start to see more spillovers and inconsistencies between when it was more static, the activity day to day, and when we were sitting there waiting for these collapse explosions to happen to be able to signal to the public, you got an hour or an hour and a half until you can start expecting, not just, be curious about, but expect some kind of weird surge at Fissure 8. This is we could time the periods in which you needed to be concerned about at that point in time when you entered that final stage. And that was really interesting to watch, to me, the developments that we saw across the board as the final stage happened. And then we, went into the end of the eruption where it sputtered around and people, is it restarting? Right? Mm-hmm. And
I think we also remember along with the surges, we had on the ground observations for the height of the fountain at Fissure 8, and we started noticing that it was dropping steadily. And so then we started speculating, it was either the pressure or the volume of lava was reducing. And so just everything together, we started seeing, we thought we were seeing signs that, it could be on the decline. And, do you remember what we titled that post that we didn't post?
No, I remember we had how it ends. We had a giant write-up we were working on, but I went way too in-depth with it, and it took, it was killing way too much time. Yeah. And it was basically setting up the eruption into 4 separate phases, and then showing how the last phase, concludes. And I just literally never finished it. I still have the write-up somewhere, and it just doesn't get there. Right, it doesn't get there, and it was I wish I had more time on that one. If I had more time, that would have been a really good write-up. But what are you gonna do when everything's changing and the pressure's on and stuff like that, and you're having to do analysis? That's where really, to me, where analysis really comes into play, when you have to do it against a time crunch. If you have all the time in the world to do analysis, then you can sit there and play with all the formulas in the world that you want to play with. It's when you have to do on-the-fly calculations that in figuring out, via Occam what you can cut and not, what's the simplest approach to this type of situation, right? And taking that type of approach to calculations it's different than academia, right? This is back of the envelope, finding a napkin and a Sharpie or a crayon. right? And just starting putting numbers on it. But in a disaster, I argue that that's important to be able to do.
Right. Yeah. I mean, these have a practical use, really, right?
Right. Because, doing stuff in paper and academia is great and all, but if you can't apply it, then when the time comes, then what was the point? That's always been my assessment of a lot of the situation is you can do there's guys that are mathematicians, but it's like, do you choose to use it outside of your designated, outside of your safe zone, right? Your safe space where you understand.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and a lot of it was helpful, not even giving straight answers, but just saying, well, here's a range of possibilities of what could happen, right?
Exactly. Right, because it was at that point in time, especially when USGS put out on July 15th that the most likely case was the eruption would continue for months to years. People were hurt, man. Like, people were straight hurt. I remember you had to do an emergency live that night, Philip, and explain to people like, yo, this didn't change anything, right? We already, this isn't,
ranges.
Right, this is just a range, and we were talking at the time, this was a plan that was meant for civil defense. This was not meant to be, public information as it's described. It needed a preface to it, but yeah.
Right, it was the best document for disaster planning, right? Plan for the worst case.
Right. Well, yeah.
You guys remember in that first day, so the lava's coming out. I remember just racking my brain. I'm like, what do we? How long is this gonna go for? Like, it was just that first question, because you're trying to find something to compare that to. Like, is this gonna go on for a day, like a week? Is it a month? And like, I mean, I've never been around for at least the start of a new eruption like this, and I don't know, what were your guys' thoughts, your first thoughts when this started happening, like as you started processing it?
It wasn't until it started progressing back up the rift, right? Because we had that initial phase. Phase 1 was built up until May 4th, right? Including the magnitude 6.9 earthquake, right? All of the prequel, and then once the eruption started, we got to see Ikaika in action, like hard, right? He was at every fissure when it happened, it felt like, for up until like fissure 18 or something like that. And at that point in time, it seemed like it was very much similar to 1955. Sporadic activity, starting to get some flows, and then we saw the transition up the rift, right? 17 back to fissure 18, back to fissure 20, 22, back by PGV, and then the first lows down to McKinsey, right? That was the time where I was like, okay, so we have a problem. And once fissure 8 happened, and you're seeing it on the screen now, the early days of fissure 8, it was like, okay, we're in now uncharted territory. What is that thing? Like, even early days, this was the May 30th.
Did you know how it was Hell Night, May 28th?
Yep.
Remember, I'm curious. You know how fissure 8 started?
Yeah. Let me show the video. I have like a few back. I'll just bring it up because we had that. This is right here. This was May 28th. Fissure 24 right here is, I'm going to draw on it, right, for everybody. This is 24. This is 8. Right? And you can see the lava going into 8. This was before it reactivated for the second time. Like, that's... Yeah, that was the... What were you referencing? I just want to show that since I had it queued.
Yeah, that was the beginning of the re-beginning of the deadly fissure 8.
Yep.
Killing everything in its path. Trees, animals, pets.
Oh, yeah.
Homes. But Jeremiah has that whole video.
Yeah.
He was, I mean, that from Fisher 2024 going into Fisher 8 and reigniting Fisher 8.
Yep.
And that was the beginning of, oh my, that was Hell Night. May 28th. I remember that day. Man, that thing went off.
Yep. And this is what the viewers are seeing now is the lava from Fisher 24 going directly into the vent of Fisher 8 before it reactivated. Right?
Yeah.
Like, that is exactly what happened. And it was...
Yeah.
We didn't even know on the... Because 27th we thought was Hell Night. Remember? Like, 27th was crazy. And then the 28th happened. It was like, oh, no. This is the real Hell Night. Like, this was...
27, 26, 27. That's the time when all behind PGV was just unbelievable.
Right.
Was like, and it was huge fountains of lava, but you couldn't hear them. It was so quiet, and it was. I have videos of it, and it was just unbelievable. And that's when it was going right into Lani Puna, hooking back around, going down to Mackenzie State Park area and Malama Flats, and. Yeah, and then we came out. We were behind. We were at Uncle Bill's house behind PGV, and we stayed there for a couple of days, and we watched that whole thing. It was all of a sudden. I think it was. I got a call from Andrew Hara. He's like, bro, and we were behind PGV. And watching Fisher 16, 17, 18. And then I get a call from this in the afternoon. Bro, check out this lava. And it was all the sticky stuff first. It was like, it was like the big explosions and fountains with, it looks like it was all this older lava stuff that was stored beneath the East Rift Zone. And I got a call from Andrew Hara. He's like, bro, I'm here in Leilani with Chris Burmeister, and this is insane. I think they were on Kaupili, if I'm not mistaken. Kaupili or Makamai. No. I forgot which one they were on, but they're on that street, and another Fisher ignited again. And then all you see, I seen the video, and all you see this liquidy lava coming out of the fountain and moving super fast. I was like, whoa! I seen the video, so I showed Mileko, hey, something's happening. She's like, no, we're staying here. And all of a sudden, maybe in like an hour to 2 hours, that lava came right behind PGV and ignited that whole night. I think it was May 26th or 27th.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. That's where that whole back part just lit up. Then all the lava went down to down in Puhiki area, down to Malama Flats and in Mackenzie State Park area. And I remember just watching I have videos of it, and it's just huge fountains, and you couldn't even hear anything landing. It was so quiet, but it was just big. I mean, tons of 100 tons of gallons of, oh my God, so much lava. But, and then we came back out, and then we went back into Kupona Street, and behind Kupona Street on the Malama side, you could see there was a huge crack back there. And that's when Hell Night broke out. We were in there, and lava was fountaining from Fisher 8 and coming back towards Malama, coming back to Leilani Avenue area, towards that way, and was going into this huge crack behind Stacy's house.
Yep.
Filling in that crack. And and my friend Jeremiah guys were on Nohea Street, and he got some footage of his friend's house got being taken within minutes. I mean, once Fishery got ignited, within 5 to 10 minutes, his house got taken. So it was so quick. So yeah, if I'm not mistaken, May 28th was Hell Night in Leilani.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Yeah, that was a so one of the craziest story we had during the eruption, and I don't think we've ever really talked about this one publicly before, was we on Hell Night when it was going down Luana Street in Leilani Estates. We had figured out the addresses of all the people that were there, right? All the residents that were there and the names of them. And we went down the names and figured out if we knew any of them. And we knew one of them, right? And we called him. And we told him that, this, it's coming for you. It's bad. Get out. And he was like, no, it's, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. We're like, no, go out in the front yard and look. And he goes on the front yard and looks, and he's like, oh, God, I'm going to have to call you back. Right? And that was the guy that then got saved by the USGS drone team by walking out the backside of his street, right, through the jungle. Is we had called him beforehand and be like, yo, what are you doing? And he was, super grateful last time, with the few times that I've been able to meet with him in person. Because he was like, yeah, we didn't know. Like, we didn't know what was exactly happening, right? And that was the first warning, was this phone call that was, get out now, right? And then he realized, like, oh, no, it's too late for that, actually. Like, it's already taken the front yard, or the driveway. Because it was moving quick, right? You remember how fast it was moving during that May 27th, May 28th? It's moving quick.
Yeah. Yeah, it was moving. It wasn't playing around. That's for sure.
Yeah, man. Heavy times, but we got the community got through it. That was the important thing. Everybody took some hits. I took some hits, but damn, like the community pulled together. That was the important thing, and that's kind of again where we're facing now is, will the community being
right.
able to come together to solve their own problems.
Right. I wanted to you guys were talking about the better planning. So during the hub time, the hub and Gilbert Oginago worked on getting these tiny homes built for lava evacuees, and they built almost over 20 of those tiny homes in Pahoa. And the person that the company that would sponsor a lot of stuff was HPM. And HPM, through HPM's administration, who used to work for HPM, it was Daryl Oliveira. If you remember who Daryl Oliveira was, he was the civil defense director during the 2014 Pahoa lava flow. So during that time, I talked to him. Really nice guy, really knowledgeable guy. And I talked to him, and I said, "Hey, what do you know about this kind of stuff?" So he told me, after the 2014 lava flow, we sat down with USGS during that time and came up with plans for evacuation, not only for another lava flow coming in from Pool, like how it did in 2014, but also a East Rift Zone eruption. And they had strategic planning for this eruption. And the thing about it is, So Billy Kinoy and Daryl Oliveira went to. He told me they went to after that level 4 finish. They went to USGS and said, "Hey, we want to create strategic plans for evacuation. Tell me what kind of eruptions or lava flows or anything like that we should be aware about." And USGS said, 2000. I mean, in 1955, we had in we had East Lower East Rift Zone eruption. 1960, we had another one, which is Lower East Rift Zone, and also which is the Kapoho one. If I'm not mistaken, it was 1924, Phil, something like that.
Yeah, the 1924 was the intrusion that came down into East Rift Zone, but never really. We can't prove that it surfaced. It might have done something under the
Yeah.
water, but we don't know.
So, so the first thing that they said, just told our leaders is, an eruption could happen again. So they said, you know what? Let's gather some data. Let's gather how much the population in this area. Let's do a time frame, and let's create a plan, an eruption plan. So they did a plan, and he told me it was well thought out. They took a lot of time into that, and it was in the county's policy or something like that. He was telling me, and he told me, I don't even know what it was there. We made the plan. I don't know why it wasn't initiated during the eruption or pre-eruption. Why didn't they take that plan? So, just to let everybody know, there was a plan thought out for some an East Rift Zone eruption in 2004. So, not too sure why it wasn't initiated during the eruption or before May 2nd or May 1st. But they made a plan. You know.
Well, yeah. Well, we've gone pretty far at this point. I've started to have some technical difficulties where basically Phillips and Ryan's cams are frozen at this point in time. And
Okay.
Ikaika's is the only cam that's working, but I can't transition to it. So, you are just looking at me right now with some eruption footage from Holly Mau playing, like post-eruption, right? But I think we've had a really good discussion here, and I'm glad, a bunch of people were able to join us and stay tuned for it all.
Right.
I think we can
have some closing thoughts.
Yeah, some closing thoughts would be great. And we can revisit this, this is just the anniversary of the beginning, right? Something for 3 months. We can do this again. But yeah, closing thoughts. Let's start with Philip and then Ikaika.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's it's probably for people in Puna especially been tricky to really deal with COVID so soon after the eruption. It doesn't seem like it's been it seems like plenty of time has passed from an outside perspective probably, but it's been a really slow recovery, right? And so, but one question Ikaika asked me a long time ago as far as like how eruptions actually come about, can lava ever come out of the same crack twice? And we'd say, well, it's pretty unlikely because drains back in, it almost forms like a scar tissue, right? So like in some ways we are scarred from everything that happened 2018, right? But that makes us stronger right now. Yeah, I mean it's like you get calluses when you do work, right? Like we've basically done some emotional work, and part of talking about this whole thing today is just dealing with that again and over again. And we all need a little bit more of it, and I hope we talk about it. Sure, yeah. So. Yeah, that's like my final motto is just just use it constructively, right? Like remember that we are strong, and that's there's going to be a lot more eruption coverage in the news, in the next week, in the next few months, right? So
I'd like to jump in. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Like I'll take mine right here, just based upon the footage that we're looking at, right? And I'd just like to make my final remarks about sustainability and the island's economy going forward, right? We know that we are facing some uncertain times. We know that there are very difficult situations ahead. And we're sitting here looking at the third most grossing boat ramp in the state of Hawaii, not the island, but the state, being inundated with sand. And the engineers and I and Philip have sat down on, and Ikaika have sat down on multiple occasions to determine how we can reopen this area, to reestablish fishing in the Puna district, which is paramount to sustainability in this new age, right? So one of the things I would like to, for my closing remarks is we should re-look at what can be done at Po'ohiki. Ikaika, what do you got to say for your closing remarks?
Well, you know something? Thank you for everybody. Thank you, Hawaii Tracker. Thank you all the audience out there and all the people that was affected by the eruption. And my closing remarks is community comes first. Community strong and stay classy, Puna.
All right.
I haven't said that thing for a while.
I know, right? Ryan?
Yeah, no, I think that's the biggest thing. You guys have already touched on it, but yeah, hard times like that, it brings people together, and it brought us together, in 2018, and I think we've picked right back up, here in the COVID-19 situation, and yeah, everyone needs to stick together, and we'll make it through this. It's going to be, it'll be a hard time, but yeah, it's another opportunity for everyone to grow closer together as a community.
Right. Yeah. And
mahalo, guys.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Until next time, I appreciate everybody taking the time to join us, sticking with us through this whole thing. I know it's been a little bit long, but there's a lot for us to go through when we sit down and talk. If we're going to do real talk on about this whole thing between us,
I have a last closing remark and a request.
Yeah, what's that?
Dane, you look like you're a singer with that nice, beautiful mic. Can you sing us a song out?
Oh, you don't want to ruin a video like that. You do not want to do that. You get sued. It will be the end of Tracker. Like,
how about one last stay classy, Puna, for old time's sake?
Okay.
That sounds good.
All right.
1, 2, 3.
Stay classy, Puna.
Puna.
All right.
Aloha.
Aloha, guys.
We're off air.